everyone. Welcome into the Her Hoop Stats podcast. You're hearing this on, at the earliest, Friday, March 27th. We're recording on Thursday, the 26th. And so we'll give you the usual disclaimer of when inevitably some crazy news drops tonight. Too early. We're not time traveling to find out. So you'll have to live with it. I'm so sorry. But you'll also have to live with whatever else we get into today, because this is Jamie Steyer Johnson alongside Chelsea Leite. So we're rolling. We are here. We are ready to go. And we're going to take a little bit of a detour from most of the topics at hand for this week. Obviously, March Madness in full swing. A lot of great games coming up this weekend. But man, our friends across the Her Hoop Stats universe have done a great job of covering that this week. And so Chelsea and I are going to pivot, and we're going to talk some W. And of course, with Chelsea, that means we're going to talk expansion draft. We're going to talk tempo. Portland too. But, we're going to get into it because guess what? We have some information. We have some guidelines, and we have a date.
Oh my God, I'm deceased. We have a date. We have actual information. This is wild. After months of just kind of floating around with nothing. I remember the last time we recorded, you and I, we were like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And now we have real information, Jamie.
Oh my gosh. Going from maybe this is what it's gonna be. We have to speculate based on something.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, yep, here you go. It's not completely like trickling out. We're getting some massive information dumps, but like there's still so much more to even get through. Like we haven't seen the language of the CBA. We haven't seen all the specific details, but we can wait on that. We can focus on the task at hand because things are going to be escalating quickly.
You mean you're not excited to read a 300-page document?
No, actually, I really am.
I know. Yeah, I don't know why I'm asking you this. You're gonna dive into it. I don't know why I was trying to be sarcastic there. You will read every page of it.
Preferably after the semester is over. That would be good for everyone. But yeah, I will be. It'll be me and Richard, really getting into it.
And Jacob, the three of you are just gonna go real hard and heavy. And then I'm just gonna wait for you to tell me what's gonna happen. No, I will probably have to read it. But
it'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. That's so funny. What an exciting time. But the one thing we do have a lot of information as of yesterday, when we were recording this, is the expansion draft, which is so fun. It has a very long name. We're just gonna call it the expansion draft.
Yeah. We aren't beholden to the branding. We aren't getting paid to include the 14 sponsors in the name. Yeah. But the expansion draft coming up April 3rd. And so kind of right alongside all of the goings on with the Final Four. And so as always, we are going to have WNBA news coming right alongside the wrap up of the college season. So that's exciting. But 5 protected players per team. They're going to be due this weekend. Based on what we saw last time, those lists will not be made public unless there's, leaks and things like that. But that's not something that the WNBA has historically shared publicly. Which, as you make the thumbs down, like it would be really nice to know that. But also you understand why it certainly can sow some discourse for sure. And so
by the time we know who gets, we know the choices, you can kind of guess at that point. Like, you can kind of make, an educated guess post-expansion draft, probably. So, yeah, I get it. But it's also come on.
It gives you'll at least be able to kind of work backwards and figure some things out, but it'll be interesting. We've got a coin flip. I mean, Tyler's going to be begging for the coin.
Tyler?
If we can get him the commemorative coin, imagine how big the coin is going to have to be if one of the sides has the entire name of the draft on it.
It's going to be this coin.
It's going to be a dinner plate.
It's going to be do you know when they flip tires? That's what the coin flip is going to be. Those giant tires. That's going to be Kathy trying to flip the coin.
I mean, even more sponsorship opportunity there, as far as I'm concerned.
Goodyear? He was sponsored by Goodyear, the tires.
As always, this is pre-game. Just remember us when you inevitably use these. Just give us the invite. Get us flued out.
Let us help flip the coin, the tire coin.
The coin flip is for the choice of either first pick in the expansion draft or the earlier pick in the college draft, which is the 6th pick as opposed to 7th. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of the strategies as far as what they prioritize. I think there's a lot of speculation that people are going to, that the teams, that Toronto and Portland may heavily prioritize the regular draft as opposed to the expansion draft, the college draft, college/overseas draft.
Entry draft might be a good
entry draft. That's a good one. I like that. But I don't know. I went through and I looked at all of the rights that are currently held by teams.
That's smart.
And there's definitely potential there, especially after what we saw from the Valkyries last year. They were able to put together a really competitive squad. And then I think when you look at like what Phoenix did, even where they brought in a lot of players that flew very under the radar. For them, it was mostly they brought in players that hadn't played in the W before, had been primarily playing overseas. But I think that blueprint is very similar to how the Valkyries approach their draft. And so there's definitely going to be a lot of potential. You look at a team like Washington, who is able to return almost all of their players from next year or from last year to this year because they have 5 rookie scale contracts. They have 2 different reserve players. They have 2 restricted free agents. Out of all those, they can only protect 5. So you're going to have several really good options, and they're not the only team that's in that situation. So obviously you're not going to build your entire roster based off of this expansion draft, but you can build quite a bit, as well as the players you're able to pick in the expansion draft are more than likely going to be able to qualify for the developmental player spots. And so you don't even have to say, all right, are they going to be ready to go on to and contribute to our full roster right away? You can use that to really handpick your developmental players, which I think is a very underrated benefit for these expansion teams as well.
So my thing with this, with the protected list, and like, I think obviously like this is done for a reason, but like the coin flip and the decision will happen before the protected list, because the protected lists are due on Sunday, and then the league will pass those off to Toronto and Portland. They can start strategizing, yada yada yada. But like, yeah, I'm not sure. I've been trying to toss this up and down. Like, what is the choice? Do you go 6th pick in the draft, in the entry draft? Do you get more advantage in the expansion draft? And like back when I didn't know if like free agents would be protected or not, or if they would be kind of like in this process, I was like, probably like you want the 6th pick because it's such a good college like entry draft. But now it's a little bit different because you have this like unrestricted free agent rule. You have the fact that you can protect everybody that was on your roster last year, even if you don't know if they're going to come back and sign with you. And yeah, so it makes it, and the 5 as opposed to 6, because it was 6 with
yes,
yeah. So you have 5 as opposed to 6. Each team, which I'm like 99% sure this is how the language goes, but each team might lose 2 players. Now, Toronto and Portland don't have to draft from each team. They can say like, no, I'm good from whatever team. But potentially you're losing 2 players. And so it's going to be interesting, like really interesting. And yeah, with the inclusion of developmental spots, like when you think about it, there is potential for them to pick, I think 12 or 13 players.
13, yeah.
13, yeah, in the expansion draft. Obviously you go into training camp with a lot more players than you need, but like not all of these players that are getting drafted are necessarily going to make the final team. So
well, and they still have free agency to go through. And so it just allows you to have a great pool of players to kind of fill out your roster. Like these probably aren't going to be your stars,
no,
but maybe down the line.
With one exception, but yeah. I mean, like, because we haven't talked about, like, the unrestricted free agent kind of vibe.
Of course. But also,
I'm not talking about drafting a Leite.
I was going to say, with that, it would have worked either way.
Look, maybe I'm manifesting it.
But I mean, like I said, they've got a lot of players to consider. And the other part is you can negotiate for like, okay, hey, just if you want to know who we're picking ahead of time, like if it would benefit you to just make the decision now, we could negotiate and say, hey, this is who we want to pick. And we will guarantee to you that this is who we pick in exchange for like not springing it on you last second or whatever. And so who knows? But I want to, before we move on and talk about the unrestricted free agent selection, I want to highlight something you mentioned, which is that the coin flip is, as you said, before the lists are submitted. And so if it were flipped, that would obviously be massive, because if you know that a player that you want to select, that you think the other team probably wants to select as well, is available, then you would probably take the first pick in the expansion draft.
That would be too easy. We're going for
chaos that would be too easy. And more than likely, the kind of player we're referring to would be your unrestricted free agent selection. So let's get into it.
The coin flip is one thing. So that's the first thing. Then we get the protected lists on Sunday. Cool. After that, so I do want to say again, before we officially move on, that like having these conversations and trades with other teams can only happen after the lists. So from Sunday to Friday. But the biggest kind of thing that people are talking about in this unrestricted free agent, which I guessed some sort of rule like this would happen because there's precedent with Golden State. But so there's a rule where Toronto and Portland will each be able to select one unrestricted free agent. What's the official term they're going with? Potential unrestricted free agent, sure. And so it's kind of like when Golden State was able to core a player, but this time the person does not need to be core eligible. There's no age restriction on it. And the person that they end up picking, who will be an unrestricted free agent, they're only allowed to pick one, each team. And Toronto and Portland will have the sole negotiating rights for that player for the Supermax. That's a very important point. So basically, to explain it, because like I've had a lot of people like being confused about this. So say, for example, Jamie is an unrestricted free agent in the WNBA. And Toronto decides they're going to draft her from Minnesota in the expansion draft. Jamie would only be able to negotiate a Supermax contract with Toronto. She could go to any other team and negotiate below a Supermax contract. But the only way that she will be able to get a Supermax contract is with Toronto that drafted her. And so hopefully that makes sense for people who are listening. But like, so essentially each of these teams will have the opportunity, and I assume they will do it, to pick someone and give them a Supermax, basically coring them, but then they won't be held to the restrictions of a core contract. So you can sign them to however long of a deal they want, whatever. There's no core rules around it. It doesn't have to, and so that means you can pick someone who has already been cored twice. You can also pick someone who isn't eligible for the new core, who is older, all that stuff. And so like, and I've had a few people DM me being like, so could they pick Asia Wilson? And like, technically, yeah, but like, will they? Probably not. Like, you have to think about this in terms, like we're talking about expansion. You have to pick someone who you think is eligible or like worthy of a Supermax, because that's important. You have to pick someone who's gonna come play for you, and you have to pick someone who it's like kind of teetering on that balance of like, okay, like say for example you picked Asia Wilson. Yes, she deserves a supermax contract, but like she also makes a lot of money other places, so she could just go back to Vegas and be like, well, I can't negotiate a supermax contract. Let's do something lower and still.
And that's someone who has already notably taken less than she could have to build their team.
Exactly, and it's the same with Brianna Stewart, and it's the same with da 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 da. You list all these like top tier people who have been vocal about the fact that they want to stay. Nafisa wants to stay with Minnesota. Brianna Stewart wants to stay with New York. Sabrina Ionescu wants to stay with New York. Like, yeah, you know. And so, like, for me, like, the targets with this unrestricted free agent, I think is someone who is, like, right below that, like, superstar tier, who is, like, ready for an opportunity to lead a team, is a great player, but not in that, like, tier of, like, the Asias and the Caitlin Clarks and the, you know. And, yeah, someone who, like, is ready and excited for this opportunity to come get a supermax contract, lead a team, be that person. And so I think like Toronto and Portland will be very smart about these decisions. I think that you don't just pick anyone. I think you pick them with all of this in mind. At the same time, like you do have the potential to get a really great player.
Well, and I mean, you look at like the way that the Valkyries approached things last year, and like you look at some of the vets they were able to get on their roster, and you know, Kayla Thornton, Monique Billings, like these players that really stepped into these massive leadership roles and stepped up in ways that they maybe hadn't at their previous teams. Like that's kind of the archetype that we're talking about here of players that have this ability.
But also someone who's worth 1.4 million is important.
You know, that's the
now
thing.
We're talking about it in these terms. You gotta be ready to pay someone $1.4 million.
And so that's where like the talent evaluation and also just the vision you have for your team is so important. And that's the kind of stuff that they've been discussing while we sit here and twiddle our thumbs and say, hey, are we ever going to get some information behind the scenes? That's what the teams have been discussing is, what's our plan? Like, who are we? What is the vision from our coach? What is the vision from our even like marketing team and things like that? Like, how are we creating a cohesive sort of idea of what this franchise is going to be and who can fit that mold? Like, who is going to help us further that kind of goal, as well as saying, okay, we also can't control everything. Like we have to be ready to take players that are in a position to contribute, even if maybe they aren't the exact type of player we would want to. If we were handcrafting our team, you say, all right, maybe we take someone who is a lot more defensive oriented, and then we take someone else who's more offensive oriented, even though as a group, we want to try and be really, really balanced. Like those are the considerations that you make. And then you see, okay, who fits that mold? Who is going to be able to step into that role? And it's not all going to be, yeah, that's, I think the biggest thing for these unrestricted free agents is leadership, because look, expansion teams have historically struggled some, but the Valkyries showed that it's not a necessity to just flounder while you get your feet under you. Like you can come out the gate and be competitive, especially right now when be fun and you get to negotiate on equal footing as the rest of the league once we get to free agency as well. So it's just about saying, okay, what's available here in this expansion draft, but our team isn't going to be solely made up of expansion draft players.
No, because even if Toronto and Portland get 12, 13 players, depending on if they decide not to take from any specific teams, you still have 3 players coming in from the draft, at least, or less than if they make trades or whatever. There is the potential for that. Toronto and Portland are officially going to be like in this kind of trade market now for drafts. And you also have to think about the fact that the next 2 college drafts are, this one is deep. Next year and the 2028 draft in particular, people are going to be coveting 2028 draft picks, first round draft picks, mind you. Like that, those are the price is going up on those. Let's be so for real. And so yeah, like the idea of trading and like doing stuff like that. The idea that now, like when you think about the WNBA system of 2 years of, what's like scores, results, affect your draft lottery
Mm-hmm.
odds. And I'm not saying the WNBA really isn't historically a league that really tanks a lot, but like 2028, man. Like that's a wild draft. And so like there's all these different things to like take into consideration. But yeah, with these unrestricted free agents and with this expansion draft in general, like this is just the beginning. This isn't your core of your team. This is okay, who are we bringing into training camp to get a better look at? Who are we retaining the rights to that maybe might not come over until next year or the year after? Who has potential but hasn't exactly gotten that like playing time on another team? So yeah, it's like interesting to think about that. But I do think the big decision in this, again, the unrestricted free agent thing is, yeah, someone who is going to be willing to come to an expansion team. And in Toronto, like an expansion team in a new country, which kind of like adds a little bit of like different like I do know that like there's going to be a heavy emphasis on like who's going to be a good ambassador, who's going to be like who could be the face of this country kind of vibes. And that's a lot of pressure. Like that's a lot of pressure. And I do know that like not every person on the team is going to have that kind of pressure. And so when you're picking a leader, like you have to pick someone who is going to kind of embrace that, who's going to want to that role, who is going to be good for it. So
and ideally someone who like is bought in, not just for the short term. Like
exactly.
if you're able to, you want to be setting yourself up for the longer term, not saying, okay, this is who's going to be the face of our team this year.
Yeah, exactly. You want someone who kind of can grow with it too. So that's why I kind of think like you don't go for someone who's like a tier 1 all-star. You go for someone who maybe is younger, maybe is a little bit and can grow into that role, and someone who is sure worth the money now but will be like a steal when you think about it in like 2 seasons. Like I think that's the way to go. And I mean, I'm not in the heads of any of these people making decisions, but it's I feel like it's such an opportunity to pick someone that you're like, okay, like they're just about to hit that level of like maybe all WNBA or just about to hit that like all-star level.
Who besides anyone that hails from Canada, which, and there's names you haven't mentioned yet. We can get into those too. Obviously, we know Aaliyah Edwards is on the list, but across the league, obviously the unrestricted free agent, I think, comes down to who teams protect and what individual teams are looking for, right? That's a lot more kind of situation specific. But as far as players that have their rights available, that teams can select them and they can have the negotiating rights or they can have the contract, who are you looking at as far as like, this might be a good move, this might be someone that's unprotected and I think could be a good fit and make an impact?
Ooh, okay, I'm looking at the list of free agents now. A few stand out to me. Ezzy Magbabor is a good one. Coach has been with Sandy Brondello in the past, Australia. Is someone that I have been following, and because she got drafted as an international, 19, she's still so young, super young. Great player. I think would be a good, a decent option for that. Let's see who else. I mean, someone who maybe is like just coming off a rookie contract would be good. Like one of those is, what year was Ryan Howard? Is she?
So Ryan is one of the group that is a restricted free agent. And so that's actually Atlanta, I think, is one of the more interesting teams to look at.
Protecting her,
because they will protect her, but they have on their rookie scale Tahina Pau and Taylor Theory. They have on their as restricted free agents Ryan Howard and Naz Hillman. And then in their reserved category, they have Maya Caldwell and Sika Kone. And that's not even getting into the fact that they have 3 really big time unsigned players that they hold the rights to Naiji Puak, Isabel Borlas. Like, those are some definitely big names. So I think that Atlanta is going to be one of those that you look at and you're like, ooh, they're for sure losing 2 people.
Oh yeah. I remember doing like a mock expansion draft months ago, and I kind of didn't include the free agents in it because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I think Isabel Borlas was someone that I was like, okay, Toronto should take her. Let's see. I do think Ezzy is a good option if Seattle doesn't protect her, which again, like, who knows. Or maybe she's one of those ones where like they kind of go in and try and negotiate with Seattle for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jackie Young. I don't know. Again,
Vegas is so crazy to look at for like the decisions they're going to have to make.
To me, it's like if Toronto got Jackie Young, who is so young, just coming into her prime, like such a good player, is someone who you could maybe lock down for a few years, or not a few, but like long term, is so like just like as a player, just so like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if diverse is the right word.
Dynamic.
Like, that's a good one. Adaptable, does so much on the court. Would be such like, and I do think like she's getting to the like an age now where she could like step into a leadership role, and like, you know, that would be a good one. So yeah, there's like a few there where it's like, and I think I think about Jackie, I think about Ezzy, like someone who is a great player, an all-star level player, but isn't necessarily in that like Asia Wilson tier, Brianna Stewart tier, blah 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 blah, of people who are like gonna be like, nah, like I'm okay. I'm still chasing my rings and whatever. And like Jackie Young has rings.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not like it's kind of one of those situations where it's like,
but maybe the person who isn't currently the go-to on their team, where like everything isn't built around them, everything isn't kind of catered to them, like both of those two are such integral pieces for their teams and have been, but potentially would be ready for, as you said, that leadership role to be kind of that go-to. And so, you know, we don't know, maybe they love the role that they're in, but like if they are ready to take that next step, to be able to do so, to step into a new role in a place that desperately needs it, where like there's not a mold you have to fit into. You get to create your own mold. Because if you go to Seattle, you have a lot of history there that you're trying to live up to. And that can be great. That could also be a lot of pressure. If you go to, you know, really anywhere, there's at least some kind of precedent of this is what we've seen in the past. And so maybe this is what we're expecting of you. If you go to these expansion franchises, there isn't that level of expectation. And so you get to be the one that really sets that standard.
Oh, yeah. And like the idea of Larry T giving my girl Jackie a milli, I love it. And that means, and it's worth more in Canada. Get it, girl. There you go.
Well, and the interesting thing too, like we talk about the different teams and just the situations of who could be available. Like Vegas is crazy because you literally only have 3 players that you hold the rights to. And so you have Aaliyah Nye on her rookie scale. Then you have restricted free agents in Melissa Smith and Kirsten Bell. Every single other player is an unrestricted free agent.
Kirsten Bell is still a restricted free agent?
Yeah, because she's coming off her rookie scale.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, you can only potentially even core 1 player from your unrestricted free agents, but you probably protect your top couple options so that someone else can't snag them.
You have Asia, obviously you're protecting. Chelsea. You have, who else is here? I mean, I feel Jackie is one that you'd probably protect, unless it's one of those situations again where like conversations are happening. $1 million is $1 million.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like if we were having this conversation last year, it would be so different. Mm-hmm. We're having this conversation now where this unrestricted free agent,
there's actual money at play.
Over $1 million. Like, hold on, let me give me 1.4 mil USD to Canadian. Let's see. That's almost $2 million Canadian. It's 1.9 million Canadian dollars. And I'm not saying the person is going to stay in Canada and whatever, but that's a lot of money.
But for the season, I mean, if you're just going out to the grocery store,
I mean, it's expensive as hell. That's yeah. Toronto's not a cheap place to live. Compared to Vegas.
Good thing you have your housing covered this year.
Exactly. And you're making almost $2 million. Yeah. So, like, in that situation, if potentially you're someone like Jackie Young who has won a bunch of chips, wants to have a little bit more of a leadership position, maybe is looking for a new opportunity, who knows, and wants to make 1.4 million United States dollars, maybe I'd say, hey, leave me unprotected. Like, that would be crazy. And so good for her. Like, that's like the archetype of player that I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's so interesting.
So that'll be, there's one player that you could take as an unrestricted free agent. As far as the players that you actually would have, like, the rights to, yes. Let's throw a couple names out there as far as those options. So I went through and I took note of every player in our Per Hoop Stats WNBA salary cap database that has rights held going into this draft. Yep. And so I have a few that I'll throw out there. And then if you want to chime in with a couple, please do. But as we mentioned, Atlanta is definitely a really interesting one where I think a couple of their unsigned players could be options. The other big thing with players that are unsigned is there's certainly more incentive to come over to the WNBA if you haven't yet, because as we've mentioned maybe a couple times, the pay is up a little bit. So there's a little bit more incentive to come over to the WNBA. So when you look at someone like Nadi Puak, Isabel Borles, like, those are definitely players that you could have kind of plug and play and make an impact. I'm also looking at Connecticut, as you mentioned. Aaliyah Edwards is under contract there, so she's someone that
Washington. I like have it completely. Oh man, I'm so sorry for what. Because
Connecticut and Washington are the two teams that I believe have some of the most under contract. So you'd be forgiven there. But they have rookie scale contracts for Anissa Morrow, Sanaya Rivers, Aaliyah Edwards, Layla Lacan, Rhea Marshall, restricted free agents Olivia Nelson-Adota and Haley Peters, and their reserve players Mamiyan Toure. So like, they can only protect 5 of those players.
And when you're thinking about unrestricted free agents, Marina Mabry is someone that you don't want to let, because she could be someone that one of these teams wants to take. Very dynamic player, probably. And I mean, I don't know if things have changed. I don't want to get into the personal stuff on the pod, but like, I don't know if her thoughts about leaving Connecticut have changed in the past year. But last year she was saying, I want out of Connecticut. So could be ready for a new opportunity. Marina Mabry, someone that they might want to protect. I mean, Tina Charles, but like Tina Charles might be on the little bit of the like more veteran side for one of these expansion teams to give the super
that's the thing is, it's someone you would almost certainly target during free agency.
Yeah.
Right. But are you ready to give the Supermax for her? I mean, shoot, the way she looked last year, I'd be like, yeah, sure. But
literally. So Connecticut's such an interesting thing. Cause like, who do you protect?
And then, I mean, I'm not going to go down like every single player in the league that's under contract, but Dallas has 5 different rookie scale contracts and 4 reserved players. One of those reserved players being Louisa Geiselsuter. If it were me making the decision, I could not fathom letting someone else snag her rights. And so that potentially leaves someone on a rookie scale contract available. I would, just based on the play from last year, like the playing time, I wouldn't be surprised if that could be JJ Quinterly. I'm not sure where she's at as far as she was kind of banged up, had some injury issues later this season. So I'm not sure where she'll be as far as ready to go once the season starts, but she's definitely someone you would look at. Golden State obviously has a bunch of people under contract because they did this last year. And so that's a team that certainly will lose players. That's just going to be a given. It's more going to be a matter of who it is. Someone I feel very confident saying it won't be Veronica Burton. They will protect her. But
Billings, Kayla Thornton.
Yeah, and I mean, but those are again two of the unrestricted free agents. But like, maybe is Leticia Me here, someone who both of us talked about last year as being like a prime candidate to be picked up? Is maybe she's someone who's unprotected and she's a reserve player for Golden State? Maybe Ileana Rupert. I mean, someone who definitely has more experience, but hasn't always consistently come over to play in the W. Like, if that's someone you could pick up, you almost certainly would do so.
Wouldn't it be fun if they got Carla Leite so that it could be Chelsea Leite and Carla Leite in Toronto? Cousin, I would be like, girl, like, we gotta go through the ancestry right now.
I was gonna say, like, let's map it out here.
Let's map it out here. It would be hard, but yeah.
Just like playing name a guy and it's name a family member, just like waiting for there to be a common thread.
Like, Portuguese people, like, historically have very terrible, like, logging of ancestors, and so it would be very hard, but
you could just make the assumption, like down the line at some point,
that's my cousin.
There's a tie.
That would be really funny if they picked her up, and I could get the jersey. That'd be cool.
That would slap.
That'd be cool.
That would be really sick. All right, the last team I'm gonna mention here, Phoenix. I mentioned them as someone who kind of followed a similar path as the Valkyries, albeit in a different way of pulling together some names that maybe people weren't as familiar with, and now they have a great team where they get to return a lot of their players. So they're a team that, since they brought in so many players that were undrafted, they've got a whole bunch of reserved rights. So they have the rights to 6 players. They have 1 guaranteed contract, and they have a couple suspended contracts. So I'm really interested to see who they end up protecting. I have to think that they'll be protecting Monica Komakani, probably Katia Laksa, maybe Kat Westfeld, maybe Lexi Held ends up being open. Like,
Kalia Copper is another one of those where it's like, if you leave her unprotected, she
could
might
supermax her.
Yeah, supermax her. Yeah, so that.
I mean, if one. I think that there's a great chance that Kalani Brown ends up being taken from Phoenix because she's on a guaranteed contract. They barely played her last year. I can see them looking at it as an opportunity to clear the contract off the books and give her an opportunity to go play somewhere, because she should play.
Yeah, that's a good
And one. For whatever reason, she just didn't play in their rotation. I think that there's a good chance she ends up unprotected. And I think that if she is unprotected, you really, really, really have to give her serious consideration, because you need solid post play if you're going to compete in the W. And you just ain't going to find a whole lot of other people with her level of athleticism and physicality at 6'7". Like, whatever else she's going to bring to the table, you can't coach the height.
Yeah.
And I think she has a lot more upside than that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Oh man, I'm so excited.
I do think another one that you didn't mention that I think is an interesting situation is New York too. Like, I feel like New York, obviously, like, if they decide to go the route where they protect Stewie, Jonquel, Sabrina, Natasha Cloud,
because they have a lot of rights that they hold as well.
Yeah, like, I'm thinking the first name, I don't know if she's if they have the rights to her, but like Maureen Johannes,
she's reserved. Yeah, her and Rebecca Gardner are both reserved players.
Toronto.
They're almost certainly going to have to protect, but Nigel Laney Hamilton.
Yep.
Because she's on a suspended contract, and so they hold her exclusive bargaining rights or her exclusive negotiating rights.
So you think about it, you take a risk. Do you take the risk and leave like JJ? Like, I don't know. See, I think they could just like leave Stewie and like maybe Jonquel unprotected and be like, they're not going to sign with you anyways. So kind of vibes. But then you still have Sabrina. You have Natasha Cloud. You have Maureen. You have, let me look at the exact. You have Rebecca. You have
for their rookie scale contracts, both Niara Sabali and Leonie Fibish.
Yep. Yeah, Leonie Fibish is the one that I was trying to get to. Yes, Leonie Fibish. Ooh, dang, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then, and then Benija. So, okay. Say, for example, we're leaving Stewie and Jonquel out of this because they're like, we're going to take the risk.
Assuming that they're not going to sign the Supermax, whatever.
Somewhere else. Yada, yada. Sabrina, Natasha, Benija Laney Hamilton, Leonie Fibish, Nair Sabally, maybe Marina, maybe Rebecca.
Like, I
There's a
personally
lot.
would not be taking Emma Miesemann as my unrestricted free agent because she has shown time and time again she has no problem just not playing in the W.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even assume that she would be playing in the W on any given year, regardless of the bump in pay.
It's also a World Cup year, so I would keep that also in.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. I don't think it would have much effect on the French players anymore because the money's up a little bit, but I don't know. You also have to keep that in mind.
Oh, yeah. New York is, I mean, there's a lot of teams that are going to be interesting to watch.
And the thing with New York is you're thinking about the Toronto team where my brain goes, Sandy. Like, you have someone who's like, I've coached this player. I have a great relationship with them. If, let's take that player.
Yep.
Oh my god, if Leone Fibish ended up on that tempo. That'd be crazy. But yeah, so they have so many, whoa, that's an interesting one. Because there's a lot here. Like, Marina's a great player. Rebecca Gardner's a great player. Leone Fibish is a freaking great player. But you also have someone like Sabally, who you have developed for the past however many years.
Mm-hmm. And she's still a steal on her rookie scale, even scaled up. She's a steal on the rookie scale. And she's one of the few players that, as of right now, you have for multiple years of negotiating because she'll be a restricted free agent after this year.
Yeah. So it's like, do you protect her? That's rough. I do think maybe they could get away with not leaving Natasha Cloud protected because she's an unrestricted free agent. And I'm not entirely sure if she's in that archetype of player that you give the Supermax to.
Well, and because she's one who, you talk about culture, she's a great, great, great culture piece, but almost to an extreme because she's really come into her own in New York and clearly loves it there. Yes, and so what the last thing you want to do is remove a player's agency because that's such a bad look and just makes people scared to do business with you in the future. Yeah. And so if she doesn't for sure want to go to one of these expansion franchises, I think you say, okay, totally understood.
It's hit or miss. I could see her maybe potentially being Toronto sounds cool.
And that's the thing fun. Is I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know 4 years ago when I wrote if Toronto ever got an expansion team, here's who I would want, and I put her on it. I remember at the time she was like, this is awesome. And but that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a team.
There's ones that I think you take a flyer on and you say, hey, they don't know if they're totally interested, but we think we can convince them. And then there's ones that I think you don't even try unless you're sure.
And again, we're talking about $1.4 million, which maybe for someone like Natasha Cloud, that matters. So it's hard. That is a situation where I don't want to be Mr. Jonathan over there having to make those decisions because that's rough. That's rough. And I do think New York might be one of those teams where 2 people get taken.
Oh, I don't have a doubt in my mind. I really don't have a doubt in my mind.
That's wild.
Oh man, we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Is there any other rules that we haven't talked about? Any other stipulations? I mean, okay, it's going to be a snake draft. Whoever, they're going to go back and forth. They're calling it 2 rounds of 6. I don't know. They just get to pick 12 times. It's whatever. Or 13 times. 1 unrestricted free agent. Oh, yeah. And then I think one thing that we didn't really hit was that, so whoever decides or ends up getting the number 6 pick in the college entry draft, in the second round of the draft, they'll have the 7th pick, and then in the third round, they'll go back to the 6th pick, and then vice versa. So, whoever gets the 7th pick in round 1 will then have the 6th pick in round 2, and then the 7th pick again in round 3. That was something that I realized we didn't say.
And I'll give the very quick explainer on developmental spots, which I won't even get all the way into it, but if you have listened to any of her hoop stats or press break podcasts from previous WNBA years, I've been talking about this, not just here. I've been talking about this for years before I ever started doing anything for her hoop stats. This is the greatest thing. I could not believe it when I saw that they were making it happen, the way that they're approaching it. I love it. Developmental player spots, they do not count against the cap. You get 2 spots in addition to your 12 required roster players. They have to be either under 4 years of service, so 0 to 3 years of service, or if they have 4 or 5 years of service, they have to have played between 1 and 160 minutes in the season prior. So very specific guidelines, mostly for players that just haven't really played a whole lot in the W. They can play in up to 12 games in a season, and at any time you can convert them to a full roster player. And so you get to have them practice with you. They can be kind of that first person. Yeah, you get to bring them in if someone else is hurt, as opposed to having these short-term hardship contracts. Other teams can sign them for the first 2 weeks after you sign a developmental player. You have their exclusive rights. After those 2 weeks, someone else can come in and offer them a full contract. And beautiful. So it's very interesting. It'll be interesting strategically, but as we mentioned early on, for some of these players that maybe are on the fringe of the rotation on teams or are currently unsigned, that's going to be another really big opportunity for these players coming into training camp. And so technically you have 14 spots that you're filling coming out of your training camp. And so it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that.
Up from 11. Like last year was basically 11. And
and now required to be 12.
Required to be 12, technically 14. And for those of you who kind of like men's basketball as well, it's very similar to a G League contract, very similar to the idea of having a two-way player. Like even because like in the G League too, like NBA teams can go and like sign players from other G League teams. Like it's happening a lot. It happens a lot after the trade deadline. And it's like you see the effects of having these developmental players as a part of the system, and the idea is that they are part of the system. They're part of the team. They practice. They know all the schemes. They know they're there and ready to contribute if needed. And especially with the season we had last year, where injuries unfortunately were such like a huge part of the season. Oh man, this is going to change the game. So yeah, it's such a, I love it. It's so good.
And just as like the last kind of random money point, they get paid over $6,000 for each game they play in, on top of like their normal stipend, which is in a lot of cases probably more than they made on the hardship contract they would have been on in the equivalent last year. So, and that's like per game that you play. You can play up to 12.
Imagine just being like, I'm gonna go make this kind of money today. Like that's cool. And also, it's like, and their housing is paid for.
Yep.
And they get a stipend. It's like the alternative for these players is like you get let go and you have to go. Like, sure, these players will probably also end up going to play overseas or something. Like I don't think that's gonna completely go away. But you get to make some money, be with a team, have an opportunity. Like it's
well, in opposed to like where it would be, okay, my hardship contract here for 3 days and then somewhere else for 4 days and then home traveling for 2 weeks and trying to work out at home. No clue if I'm going to get another opportunity. Should I go back overseas and go play for a team over there? And then I land overseas and I look at my phone and I have a call from my agent and I have to come back because someone just got hurt. Like, it's absurd. So it won't completely eliminate anything like that, but it will eliminate a lot of the necessity. So
and it'll give like these fringe players and these drafted players and these players coming from overseas or whatever, like so much better of a chance to like have a career. And
like that's literally the point. That's the name, is developmental players. Like up until this point in the W, if you are not going to be regularly contributing, you basically can't devote a roster spot to them. And so now all of a sudden you have 2 roster spots reserved solely for that purpose. And so it's a complete kind of culture shift. And it will certainly pay dividends long term, especially as we have more teams coming into the league. Teams have to be able to kind of prioritize that long term development on top of being competitive currently.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, well, man, we got into it, and we've got another week ahead of us where we'll get more information. We'll get some speculation. We'll see what's up, but I think we've covered a good bit here, so I'm excited. Certainly, we missed some things, we missed some players, but we can't cover it all. I'm not going to just sit here and list off every single name. If you want that, you can go check out the Her Hoop Stats WNBA salary cap database, because that's there for you. It's a great resource. So as always, make sure you are subscribed to Her Hoop Stats. That's where you're going to find all sorts of great information on the new WNBA CBA and contracts and all that once we get that info. But in the meantime, we've got the information on what rights are held, who's where, all that fun stuff. We've also got, of course, all sorts of great info on the teams that are still playing in March Madness, matchup predictors, stats, written content from our awesome group of writers. Of course, we've got Her Hoop Stats podcasts that come out every day. Today, coming out Friday. We'll be back at you every weekday next week. And then, of course, we'll have kind of a funky week, because we'll have a bunch of people, myself included, on site in Phoenix for the Final Four later next week. So just kind of stay tuned for that. But make sure you're following Chelsea Leite at Chelsea Leite on whatever platforms you use, myself at Jay Steyer, and of course, Her Hoop Stats at Her Hoop Stats, whatever social media platform you're on. Make sure you are liking, subscribing to our podcast on Spotify, YouTube, what have you, so that you're not missing any content, because you're going to need as much content as you can possibly get. We've got finally the craziness of college W crossover. It's coming at you fast and furious. So make sure you are tuned in. We will talk to you next time. Thanks, y'all.